In the next couple of minutes, we're going to look at the plight of vulnerable renters in Victoria and see how a lack of affordable housing options has created a crisis in housing for thousands of people. We all know that housing prices have been going up. That's great if you're selling a house, but not so good if you're a buyer or a renter. Between 2000 and 2010, the average rental cost in Victoria increased from $161 to $275 a week, and it didn't stop there. Of course, housing prices going up isn't necessarily a bad thing if your income goes up at the same time. Over the same period, the average weekly earnings for a person in full-time employment went up by nearly 60%. The problem is that rents went up by more than 70%, overtaking increased earnings in the middle of the decade. But the hardest hit were people on Centrelink allowances like New Start and Youth Allowance, who already had the lowest incomes and who got much lower increases. To put this in perspective, let's look at the average salary of a full-time employee, which is now about $1,400 a week. At the bottom end of the employment scale are those on minimum wage. They're still getting about $560 if they manage to get full-time work. Now compare those trying to survive on Centrelink allowances, who only get about $250 a week to get by on. In Victoria, there are about 150,000 people in that last group, just scraping by on Centrelink allowances, and about half of these are vulnerable renters, who also qualify for Commonwealth Rent Assistance, a Centrelink income supplement originally designed to alleviate rental stress. Yet because neither the base Centrelink allowance nor Commonwealth Rent Assistance have kept pace with the rising costs of housing, about half this group are still suffering from rental stress. That is, they pay more than 30% of their income on rent, and half of that number are in extreme rental stress, paying more than 50% of their income on rent. Amongst young people, mostly those on youth allowance, the proportion of those in extreme rental stress is double the rest of the group again. Salvation Army workers frequently encounter people who are paying 70 to 80% and more of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. Whilst the situation is desperate, it's still not the full picture. With an ever-narrowing gap between a limited fixed income and rising expenses, the pressure on other parts of a person's life can too easily push them into homelessness. If we can't begin to improve housing affordability and ensure that more people have viable housing options, then sadly, more people are going to end up homeless. So what can be done? While the situation is serious, it's not hopeless, and there are things that can be done to alleviate the pressures on vulnerable renters. We should be asking the Victorian Government to increase both public and community housing options to ensure that the housing stock available is closer to matching the numbers of people who need it. The Commonwealth Government should increase the amount of Commonwealth rental assistance so that it lines up with the actual cost of renting today. The Commonwealth Government should also increase the income support payments for those on the lowest levels of allowances, specifically the New Start and Youth Allowance. And all levels of government should explore and invest in schemes like NRAS, the National Rental Affordability Scheme, that put more affordable rental properties on the market. Because everybody has the right to safe, secure and affordable housing.